Like, I'll post a tweet that's just just a fact. Like, literally just a sentence of a fact. And I'll get responses where people are like, and like, I can't, like, you can't win.
Hey everyone, this is my friend Sorsha. We met at the Cube of Truth. And today we're going to talk about chill vegans versus apologetic vegans, because there's definitely a difference.
Yeah, and the topic of it just in general, because it's always been a topic within the vegan community, whether you are too peaceful, not peaceful enough, too much of a vegan, not vegan enough, all that stuff.
Yeah, I see it a lot where people think that in order to be chill, they have to, you know, throw other vegans under the bus and like denounce disruptive activism and say like, oh, I'm not like those other vegans.
I'm not like those other girls. Like, that's literally what it is. Like,
yeah. And it really perpetuates this narrative that other vegans are self-righteous and like rude and condescending. Just like saying, I'm not like those other girls.
Yeah.
You're basically saying other girls are, you know, basic and stupid.
Or like slutty, it could refer to that or whatever, or mean, I don't know. Or like, it's just, it's grouping people together. It's stereotyping people, which is not cool.
But yeah, it kind of reminds me of like, when I was in high school, I never fully denounced feminism, but I was like, feminists are so annoying. And you're trying to be this chill girl. Like, you'll see this a lot where someone's boyfriend is like making sexist jokes in front of their friends and their girlfriend is just sitting there like letting it slide.
And it's eating them.
Yeah.
Like, eat it, like they can't handle it, but they just let it slide because they just don't want to ruffle any feathers.
Yeah.
Even though it's important to say something, because then it just continues that sexist behavior and it makes people think that it's okay because other people are laughing, so it validates that behavior, which is not good.
And this type of behavior is not unique to veganism, because you see this in so many other contexts. Like,
it's nothing new.
I was watching this video about how Bernie bros are just so mean and they're bullying people on Twitter and saying things like tweeting snake emojis at Elizabeth Warren and calling Mayor Pete Mayo Pete. And the mainstream media, of course, is like, oh my god, look at these bullies. And it's like, okay, can we talk about how people are dying because they don't have health care and like the real issues that our country's facing?
Right, and they're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You know, like, obviously bullying isn't good, but I mean, that's also the internet. I'm not defending being rude to people, but I think a snake emoji's like people do that, like when someone like breaks up with another person or someone, like an online couple, someone cheats, everyone goes over to the cheater's profile and just comments snakes. Like, that's so innocent in comparison to like a paragraph like, you're this, you're that, you're disgusting, like, you're ugly, I never liked your nose, like all that kind of stuff.
And if that's your standard of bullying, like, come on. Like,
then it kind of like makes bullying not as big of a deal as it really is. You know, it just kind of like makes it seem like it's like this light thing. So it's not just veganism. Veganism isn't the problem. It's just the culture of humans. Like, it's just us as a species, not necessarily veganism or whatever it may be.
And it wouldn't even make sense that like a subset of people that are fighting for like justice for animals would just be meaner and like nastier than the people that are literally killing animals, and like that just doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, because there certainly are like super judgmental vegans,
but that's
out there.
the person, that's not veganism.
Right, exactly.
Because there are so many people that are judgmental and rude that aren't even vegan, and there are judgmental and rude people who happen to be vegan, but it has nothing to do with veganism as a whole.
Right. And the thing about judgment is that it's not always a bad thing to express judgment.
It's one thing if you're judging something based on how someone looks or something that someone can't help, but judging people's behavior, I think we all need to hold each other accountable.
Right.
You can't just let people off the hook because you don't want to be judgmental. But what they're doing is hurting others, like actually hurting others.
And I've been vegan for 7 years now.
I've been vegan for 8.
Oh my gosh.
So close.
Yeah. So we can both relate.
Yeah.
Like, when I first went vegan, I was a little bit more, you know, intense and like in your face about it. And over time I did kind of change my approach because I wanted to be more effective. And I did take some of that criticism I was getting and like reflected a little bit.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? There is something to be said about effective activism and like nonviolent communication. And I really appreciate AV, Anonymous for the Voiceless, for doing like the Socratic method with people and not trying to make people feel judged or shamed, because we all know that that puts up barriers and people don't want to listen.
When I went vegan, I guess I was more quiet about it, but not on purpose. I just didn't think it was like that big of a deal, and I was like, whatever. But then I learned about the ethics, and then that's when I started getting a little more feisty, more vocal. And then I went online, and it's the internet. It's also like the culture of YouTube. I was like, I want to keep up with like clickbait, but mix that in with veganism. So it was like this whole tornado of a lot.
But it's so funny because like I was watching your older videos and you are just stating the truth, and people are offended by the plain truth. But in your newer videos, you've definitely like chilled out a little bit, and your approach is a lot more palatable, but you still get hate, and you still get people like telling you to shut the fuck up. So it's like, what do you want from us? Like, we take your advice and we chill out, and you still don't like what we're saying. Yeah. So it's like, for the mainstream, their definition of a chill vegan is an apologetic vegan, because they don't want to feel uncomfortable, and they don't want us pointing out, what they're doing is wrong. So it's like, we need to take back that narrative and define what it means to be a chill vegan, because I think there is a difference between being chill and kind and like using the Socratic method, meeting people where they're at, and being like apologetic, throwing other vegans under the bus, and saying you're not like those other vegans. yeah,
exactly. Like, I'll post a tweet that's just just a fact, like literally just a sentence of a fact, and I'll get responses where people are like, and like I can't, like, you can't win. No matter how peaceful of a vegan you are. Even if you're so silent about it, but then someone asks, like, are you vegan? And, like, why, like, do you want, like, people to be so peaceful to the point where they say, no, I'm not, even though they are? Like, so when you even say that, yes, I am vegan, after someone asks, sometimes people will try to challenge you from there, even though you didn't even bring it up. You're just in your own little corner, and then people still will have a problem with it. So there's just no, like, you can't win.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of brings us to this point I make in so many of my videos, but what they're doing is they're upholding a negative peace. So they just want to keep the peace, they want an absence of tension, but as MLK famously said, there is no peace unless it's positive peace. So positive peace is the presence of justice, whereas negative peace is the absence of tension. So all these people that are tone policing and telling vegans that they need to change their approach and whatever it is, like, they just want us to shut up, essentially. Yeah. And they don't want to look at their choices and make changes. And it's just like, in order to achieve positive peace, justice for animals, we have to create tension and bring some of the tension to the surface.
That's with anything, too. That was with women's rights, black rights, anything.
So I wrote a list of like characteristics of what I would consider chill vegans, and then also characteristics of apologetic vegans. So my idea of a chill vegan is someone who maintains friendships with non-vegans.
I do that.
Yeah.
Like, I do that.
And that shows that they're chill, because if they can be friends with you, then it goes both ways.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, another thing, or other characteristics of chill vegans, get along with people who hold opposing views, like you said.
Even though, like, if the conversation does come up, I won't sugarcoat things, and I will I'll stand by the truth. And, it's a great opportunity for activism. It's not an opportunity to put people down. Like, that shouldn't be the perspective. It should be an opportunity to stand up for the voiceless and, bring out the facts, because it's deeply hidden from us, and it's our job as the ones who are aware of it to say something and speak up for them, because It's so far from us right now, but all these animals, like as we're filming this, all these animals are getting oppressed and animals are screaming out and getting gassed to death.
Yeah, like it's happening right now.
Yeah, even though it's really hard to fathom that. Like it's really, really hard. But it's happening, and it's so easy to be distant from that, especially for the people who aren't vegan and aren't aware of it. Even though they are aware of it, we're more aware of it, but we're still almost just as disconnected from it as they are. So it's important to be a voice for those animals.
Yeah.
And just like anything, that should be with you should be a voice for people of color. You should be a voice for people who are in cages. You should be a voice for everyone who is oppressed, animals and non-human animals. So it goes both ways. If the conversation sparks, like add to it, like you would with any kind of conversation, that if you're knowledgeable in a topic, you're gonna bring it up. You're not gonna hold it back because you're like, I don't want to be one of those people.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And so obviously try to be understanding and forgiving and give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, don't assume bad intentions in people. I feel like a lot of people do that. Yeah. Where they, like, assume that someone is coming from this, like, place of malice. And I'm like...
A lot of it is a place of ignorance. Exactly, and that's not even their fault. Like, it's society. It's how the industries want us to be. They want us to be ignorant so that we are willing to, and we feel good about buying this brand of eggs, or from this butcher, or from that coat shop with fur, or whatever it may be. So it's not the person being like, I want to kill animals, so I'm gonna eat meat. People will say that as like a troll comment, but deep down in their heart, that's not how they are.
Yeah, yeah. Trying to communicate in a kind and compassionate way. Another thing that I would say makes someone chill as a vegan is not being like super obsessed and concerned with personal purity and like policing other vegans. Like obviously there's a standard and we should hold people accountable, but like being like over the top nitpicky, we all know these vegans exist. I do think that they're the minority, but
yeah, and that's just the person too. Like it's again, it comes back to the fact that that's just how people are in general, not just within veganism. And purity and all that kind of stuff can even be apparent in sports.
And then lastly, I would say that chill vegans, you know, admit that there are gray areas. It's not completely black and white. But when it comes to like slaughterhouses, that's pretty freaking black and white. Like it's obviously wrong. I mean, it's obvious to us, but yeah. But I think that some people, you know, they just want everything to be black and white, and
if only it was, like, but we don't live in that world. We're always gonna live in a very imperfect world, and we just have to do the best that we can.
Yeah. So being able to acknowledge that there are gray areas when having a conversation with someone, but it's always funny that they bring those up because they know that the issue that you're actually talking about is not a gray area. So
so they're trying to divert the conversation to something that they feel like they have a one-up on.
So that's how I would define a chill vegan. And obviously Sorsha is an example of someone who's pretty chill, but not apologetic. So now we'll get into what makes an apologetic vegan. Afraid of confrontation to the point where they just don't want to create any social tension, so they're promoting negative peace.
I'm a voice for the animals. Like, I just have to... I don't want to be mean to people, obviously, but at the same time, like, I don't want to make their suffering any less of a deal than it's such a big deal. Yeah. I don't want to just be like, oh, whatever. Yeah. It's whatever. Even though it's not. It's a huge deal. It's not subjective. Right. And like, it's actually happening. I wish it was. I wish it was my opinion and it was vegan propaganda. That would be the dream.
That would be great.
But it's the truth.
And they throw other vegans under the bus, denounce nonviolent disruptive activism, make excuses for people / validate people's excuses, like it's too hard, it's too restrictive or expensive or whatever. Believe that veganism is not for everyone. I see that a lot.
Yeah, because then, like, I can see it. I'm not, like, saying it's true, but I can see where they're coming from if their perspective is that veganism is a diet and they don't fully understand that there are so many different ways to eat within like just eating like plant-based. There's so many different ways to go about it that that ain't it, sis. But when it comes to like veganism not being for everyone, like you said, it's a social justice movement. So that's like saying like
being anti-racist isn't for everyone.
Right. Or like being for equal rights between all genders isn't for everyone either. Like unless those people are against a certain gender, then yeah, it's not for you. If you're for oppression, then it's not for you. But if you're against oppression and injustice, then yes, it is for you. And you can be part of it. There's no, like, it's not this little group. Like, it's not something that people, like this club, this exclusive club. Like, veganism is not that at all. Yeah. Everyone can be part of it if they care enough. Like I said, it's easy to forget. It's so easy in our everyday life. Like everything, like when you look out the window, it's like so nice, but like down the street, there's a slaughterhouse. So. Oh
my God. Yeah, and it's like, we're so privileged to be able to just not think about it.
Yeah, like going to like vigils, to slaughterhouses, you go there and you know, you're feeling all these emotions, but imagine what those animals are going through and you get to go home. Like usually you go home, like you go with the group out to eat, need some nice food, but those animals are still there, about to die, about to get their throat slit, about to get gassed to death, about to get a bolt gun to their head. And it's so easy to just forget about that. And that's with everything too. Like with any, like things that we read on the news about like what's happening to people being oppressed. Yeah. You know, we're just like, we're affected by it for like a few minutes, but then we go about our day and we completely forget about it. But that doesn't mean that that's not happening, or it doesn't mean that it's not important. It's just so easy to forget about like the reality of what's going on to others.
And that's why it's like all about perspective, because these apologetic vegans are trying to make veganism look good. They do care about the animals. They're trying to like break the stereotype of vegans. But I would argue that's counterproductive to the vegan movement, because we need to remind people that this is going on every single minute, every single day, and like just how awful it is, and like put it into perspective for people. Yeah. And yeah, I feel like being apologetic, you're
doing a disservice to the animals, to the victims, the ones who are oppressed. Because then you're making it seem like it's not as big of a deal as it really is. Exactly. And then that makes other people feel like, oh, okay, cool.
And yeah, they'll promote like reducitarianism, meatless Mondays, which I believe does a disservice to the animals. It makes veganism seem like it's some just lifestyle choice, you know, personal choice, whatever. Yeah. You're not framing the issue with the severity that it deserves.
Yeah, it's like saying sexist free Saturdays. Like you would never, like when I go out to fight for human rights, I would never suggest to someone just, you know, just be a little less sexist, be a little less racist. Like no, just don't do it at all.
Yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like if you're giving a talk on a college campus about rape, like the importance of consent, you're never going to frame it as like,
ask sometimes, but you don't have to all the time.
Yeah, like it just is not logical.
That's not effective.
Right.
Because there's 56 billion land animals yearly, and then what, like 3 trillion animals altogether yearly that are killed for just food. That doesn't account for like, you know, other industries that use animals. So it's a big deal. It's not just something to be chill about.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and there's a time and place to be chill too. Yeah. Like, this is another thing. People want to criticize people for expressing justified anger. Mm-hmm. It's like, this anger that we feel is justified. Like, if you're not mad about it, you don't really get it. And it's like, people want to tell you like, oh, your anger is making veganism look bad or some bullshit. It's like, people say the same about Bernie Sanders, you know, he's too angry. And it's just like, he has a right to be angry
about
like
stuff that you're passionate about.
Exactly.
Like, victims, you know, it's not like you're angry because a store closed too early, or you're angry because your friend like accidentally, I don't know. You know, it's like those are like little things that like you shouldn't sweat. But like when it comes to this, like you should be angry.
Finley, stop pushing me away.
Like you shouldn't be like, you should be angry, and you should, like, that passion is what changes the world.
And yeah, of course, apologetic vegans will insist that they don't judge other people for their dietary choices. Again, framing it as a dietary choice is saying that it's a lifestyle, a personal choice, rather than a social justice movement.
Right. As a vegan, I don't care what you eat as long as it's vegan. And there are so many different ways to eat as a vegan. Like,
yeah.
There's, what, 70,000 edible plant species? And I'm not eating all those, you know?
Yeah.
And I know everyone else isn't, and everyone else is eating a combination of all these different things. You know, some people are like high fat vegan, low carb, or like high carb, low fat, or they don't even think about that, you know? Or they're counting macros, or like whatever they're doing. There are so many different ways to go about it. But that's not what matters, because veganism isn't about what you eat. It's a social justice movement. In conclusion, if you look at history of all these other social justice movements, people made people uncomfortable. Like, that's what initiated change. Yeah. So we can't just sit here and make people feel comfortable. Like, that's, like, comfortable is not going to change the world. Yeah, and it's always like that with anything. Isn't there a quote about, like, being comfortable? Yeah, you gotta get out of your comfort zone if you want to grow and if you want to change. And we should be able to discuss things like what's going on to produce animal products and what's going on when animals are being used for profit. And then just also talk about anything, because that's how we evolve as a society. Yeah. Like, that's how we evolve as a species, to get better and do better. And we should hold each other accountable. Like, that's with anything. Like, you don't want to just let someone off the hook if they're hurting someone else, if they're doing something that's wrong, if they're doing something that's, like, morally wrong. People should be held accountable. It shouldn't just be like, whatever. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to go on over to Sorsha's channel. In the description box below. And I'll see y'all in the next video.
Yo, how when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me nah eat no fish, nah no meat now. How when me eat them, I wonder when me yam. When me tell them say that I'm a vegan man. How when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me nah eat no fish, nah no meat now.